What's up, y'all, and welcome to our very first episode of Center Stage. I am one of the hosts, Aaron Barton, joined by my co-hosts,
Spencer Ball
and
JP Barry.
And we're going to be debating. Obviously, you guys can assume some sports stuff and just sort of what's relevant. Every week we're shooting for Wednesdays. Around probably evening, 5 p.m., so keep staying tuned for that. But this is going to kick us off. So we're going to start off by talking about some March Madness. So we've had our first two rounds last week. We've made it to the Sweet 16, and we have the field. What are our favorites moving forward? What do you think, Spencer? Start us off.
All right, so maybe I'm a little biased, but I think the Tar Heels are really hot right now. They're playing really well. Manic has the highest plus minus in the tournament. He's plus 56 through 2 games, which is absolutely insane. He's averaging 27 points a game, 8 boards, and shooting 50% from 3 through the first 2 games so far. And remember, he didn't get to play like 10 minutes of the second game because he threw a bit of an elbow, but you know, now they're facing UCLA, who may be without their best player. If not, he could be less than 100%. Jaquez, I think he kind of, although he might not be the most explosive or maybe not the best scorer, I think he's their most important player. So I definitely think UNC can advance to the Elite Eight. And then the winner of Purdue and another team I'm sure we'll talk about, St. Peter's. So that's the potential matchup there. So I think they definitely have a chance. They've had 51 assists through the last 2 games, so they're playing really good team ball, and it looks like a whole new team here in this tournament.
I think favorites-wise, it's hard to go wrong with Duke. They've looked great. Down the stretch of the season, they kind of struggled with finding how to win games and kind of let them slip away, like the North Carolina game and the Virginia Tech game, the ACC championship. But how they rebounded against Michigan State was super impressive. They have a really tough matchup against the best defense in college basketball in Texas Tech in the Sweet 16, who survived a scare from the 11th seed Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Quick shout out to them. Great run. But Duke, Coach K's final run, Mark Williams protecting the interior, Paolo Banchero. I mean, it's Duke, you know? It's you can't go wrong.
See, as some of y'all may know, I'm a pretty big Duke fan myself. And what I will say is that, coming into the tournament, I wasn't so high on them because we've had a few pretty tough losses to teams that we really should not have lost to. And what I will say, the 2 keys to beating Duke, as I said to you guys before the show started, is either outshooting them or being able to match up with them size-wise. And if you can do one of the 2, then you have a shot. If you can do both, then you're going to beat them. Now, I really like their chances moving forward because, granted, this first matchup, Texas Tech plays great defense. That zone is tough to beat, and Duke has struggled against the zone. However, I think that Duke can guard their shooters. I don't think that they're an incredibly explosive offensive team by any means. I think they're hovering right around 63 points a game, and, Duke soars above that. I think we're around 71, 72 right now. So I don't know. I also would like to maintain my claim that I still believe that Mark Williams is the best rim protector in college basketball. I don't even believe it. I know it as a fact. So come get me. But no, them, and I will also say Purdue just because, Purdue's rolling. They were my bracket pick to win it all. And my realistic bracket, not my Duke bracket, because I have one every other year. And hey, I'm riding with my Duke guys because realistically too, I love the team, but I've had my doubts, but these past few wins have given me some confidence.
And it's important to note, Texas Tech had a dreadful offensive performance against Notre Dame team that they're not known for defense.
They not even top 60.
59, yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Texas Tech, the last 7 minutes of the game, did not make a single shot from the floor. They only scored their points via free throws. Something tells me you're not going to get a lot of free throws down the stretch against Duke. That's one, a fact of how good they play defense, and 2, a fact of the name on the chest of their jerseys. Now, you
We're
know.
on that.
But now we're going to get into our sleeper teams, some teams that have really kind of impressed and we think could continue their run further in March.
Yeah, well, UNC kind of was my sleeper team. Just like I think they have the most momentum right now, and I think they've transformed the most through any team. But another team I really like is actually Iowa State. And they have a pretty easy matchup, I would think. They match up against Miami, but Iowa State is a great defensive team. They beat Wisconsin, and frankly, they hustle. I mean, they're a team that's going to grind you down. I think they can slow down the explosiveness of Miami, and it seems like the Iowa State mentality is kind of like next man up. They don't really have that go-to guy every game. 2 rounds ago, in the first round, it was Travis Hunter that was making most of their points. Last time it was Kolschauer, and it was like, guys, you're like, we don't get much production from them offensively. They step up, they play good team ball and really good defense. I think I got them moving on to the Elite Eight, and I'd love to see them play Kansas in a Big 12 rematch. I think that could be really fun. I don't think they'd win, but I think it would be definitely a good one to watch.
It's very interesting you bring that up because my sleeper team is Miami. Jim Larinaga and the Hurricanes
Wow, we're on the same page there,
had
JP.
had no business being a 10 seed. The ACC was so undervalued this year, and Miami, Notre Dame. The ACC is like what, 9-3, 9-2.
They have the best record in conference.
And I mean, UNC, Notre Dame, Miami have really performed well in the tournament. I think Miami, they're built for March. The way their defense. They thrive in chaos, and chaos is abound in the tournament. They force a lot of turnovers. They get a lot of steals. Isaiah Wong, I mean, he scored the first 10 points of the game for Miami against Auburn in that awesome upset where they just really took it to Bruce Pearl and the Tigers. Jim Larinaga, he's great in the tournament. I always joke because he looks so much like Jim Boeheim. Oh, wow. He's like his South Beach clone. But I think Miami's good. I think they have a real shot against Iowa State because of the way Miami's defense caters to how slow Iowa State likes to play. If Miami can play their brand of basketball, force chaos, I think they'll win. And I think they have a great chance against anyone left on their side of the bracket because if you can force turnovers, you can win in March.
See, I was also going to go with Miami, but just not to explain them. I'm going to use my sleeper pick to be Spencer's favorite. So UNC is my sleeper. As you know, I hate to say it because I'm born and raised to hate with a passion Chapel Hill. But what I will say is that when they're on with their 3-point shot, I don't know if anybody can beat them. They just shoot it incredibly well when they're on fire. I mean, you can say that with just about anybody, but with them it's especially true because, Minnick pretty much dictates the flow of that offense. When he's on, it makes other people on. When you have a 6'10" guy that can pull like no other, then it opens so much up for the rest of the offense. But you see what happens when he goes out. He's obviously the biggest X factor they have. You take him out, they blew a 26-point lead and almost lost. Obviously, it was an upset that they beat Baylor, but that would have been a terrible loss if they would have blown that lead. So, it's all going to depend on him moving forward. He's incredible, though. So, if they can ride his wave going forward, then who knows how far it can take him. I think that it can take him at least a few rounds further as of right now, but if there is a Duke-UNC Final Four, Duke's going to take that one home. But, yeah.
All right, real quick before we move on to another sport, what's your Sweet 16 upset pick? Outside of ones we've already discussed. Mine is going to be Houston over Arizona.
100% agree.
I think Houston being a 5 seed was a massive disservice to their quality, and Arizona barely escaped against TCU thanks to some interesting calls at the
did not deserve to escape. Eddie Lampkin with the performance of a lifetime.
God, that was a game. It was a great game. It was awesome, but I think Houston, they're another team that thrives in chaos and they create chaos well. So the Cougars to the Elite Eight.
Easiest call there, honestly.
Yeah, I think Kelvin Sampson's got to be one of the best coaches in remaining in the tournament. And they lost both their leading scorers in December, I heard in their last game, and yet they're still able to just, play lockdown defense. We saw, they just disgruntled. Illinois, they look terrible.
Yeah.
Which isn't necessarily a surprise because I had Chattanooga in the first round. I thought, they had the game and then, found a way to throw it there in the end.
The whole time until like 2 minutes
Yeah,
left? Terrible.
I believe Illinois had a lead for about 30 seconds. And
it's not the only thing they lost, too. We'll get into that later.
All right.
That's true.
To head into some NBA talk, we're going to talk MVP. In general, what's our picks? Somebody lead us off.
To first, we got to start off by there's 3 guys, and then there's a large gap between anyone else, in my opinion. There's Jokic, Embiid, and Giannis, and then there's a large gap between anyone else. Other guys are having great seasons. Shout out to DeMar DeRozan. I love him.
Large gap with Doncic.
Or LeBron. LeBron's having a great
DeMar,
year.
and Doncic, and John Morant are having great seasons. But I feel like there's a discernible gap between them and Giannis, Embiid, and Jokic. And those 3 are just playing at such an immensely high level that's why this has been one of my favorite MVP races in the NBA in a very long time.
I know my pick has got to be Jokic for me. I feel like without his biggest weapon, he's still managing this team to a good seed in the West, and I think they're definitely going to be a threat in the playoffs. And he's just, I don't know. It's like hard to believe how good he is at facilitating an offense at such like a great size. It's really it's super impressive. So I think he goes back to back.
Now, before I give my take, I will say that they are playing, as of right now, they're playing a Golden State team without Steph, who I watched that whole game last night. They just lost to the Magic. And that's, it kind of shows that offense, not only they're missing his scoring, they're just so much depends on Steph. So I don't know. I'm very not confident in Golden State without Steph. But onto my pick. This book is The Book of Basketball by Bill Simmons. I love it. I read it every day. And I want to cite his MVP criteria when picking an MVP. So it consists of if you replace each MVP candidate with a decent player at his position for the entire season, what would the hypothetical effect on his team's record be? The next one is, in a giant pickup game with every NBA player available and 2 knowledgeable fans forced to pick 5-man teams with their lives depending on the game's outcome, who would be the first player picked based on how everyone played that season? 10 years from now, who will be the best player from that season that pops into your head? And the last one is, if you're explaining your MVP pick to someone who has a favorite player in the race, a player that you didn't pick, will he at least say something like, yeah, I don't like it, but I can see where you arrived at that choice? First one, you replace each MVP candidate with a decent player in his entire season. Okay, so let's look at the 76ers. You replace Joel Embiid. Well, who's a decent center? Jakob Poeltl. All right, that team is terrible. Okay. Best player available. Most dominant, I'm thinking, Joel Embiid. 10 years from now, who will be the player that pops into your head from this season? I'm thinking about it. Who stayed healthy most of the season, dominated every game that he played? Joel Embiid. And then, if you're explaining your MVP pick to someone, to a Jokic fan, if you say you liked Embiid, they'd say, okay, yeah, I got you there. That makes sense. Joel Embiid. Granted, I understand the Jokic pick, and maybe I would agree if they weren't 6th. Embiid was able to win, I think, 43 games. That might be it might have been it was between 38 to 43, so don't kill me if that number was wrong, before Harden even got there. So, you take him off that team, you think about this season, it was Embiid. I don't know, that's my take.
I agree. You scared me there for a second. You brought up how bad the Warriors are without Steph. I thought you were about to get into a Steph for MVP discussion. I was going to
I like Steph for MVP.
I was going to
Beginning of the season, Steph, we definitely have an
Ever
argument.
since he got the record, he's just, out there running cardio. But I agree. I think Embiid is the MVP. I mean, people are going to bring up the free throws, but as annoying as it is as a fan to watch, you still I mean, he has to make them, and he does make them, and he's.
What's his free throw problem? Just like how he shoots them slow?
How many free throws he gets.
Oh.
People are very.
Okay.
People bring up that and like James Harden, and I mean the 76ers are unwatchable with that. And is that going to translate to playoff success where teams usually don't get rewarded for free throws unless you're Trae Young? We don't know. But the MVP isn't decided by the playoffs. It's decided by the regular season.
Right.
And I mean, I love Jokic. I love Giannis. I think Giannis is kind of voter fatigued this season because I think he's having almost as good, if not a better season than he did last year. But I just think it has to be Embiid. He's just so dominant in almost everything, and I think Jokic is suffering a little bit from voter fatigue as well, just because he won it last year.
Yeah, so I got a question. So you mentioned in your argument Jakob Poeltl. If you take out Embiid and put in Jakob Poeltl,
He's a
what
decent
happens?
center.
But no, I definitely agree. But what happens if you take out Jokic and put in Jakob Poeltl? I think
a very
that
good
team
point.
is maybe they might be worse than the Magic with no Jamal Murray.
You think so?
I saw
I think
something-
your argument works more into the effect of Jokic than it does Embiid.
Yeah, but when you play in the other factors, so when I'm looking at the four pieces of criteria here, and I'm thinking about this season, like granted, last season, okay, all Jokic, but what happened last season? We started out the season, we were like Embiid all day. Embiid got hurt, so we were like, all right, LeBron all day is MVP is going to be LeBron. LeBron got hurt, so then we said, all right, Jokic. It wasn't a settle on Jokic situation because don't get me wrong, he had a great season, but still it went like and you can disagree. You can say, oh, I had Jokic all along. Like the consensus was Embiid, and then it was LeBron, and that was MVP ladder trends too. So I mean, when you check down the other criteria, when you think about this season, Embiid's been the most dominant scorer. And he's been a really solid defender as well. I mean, he's averaged more blocks. I think that's like one of the only other stats besides points per game that he has Jokic in, to Jokic's credit. But I think when you're considering those factors, I really like that those MVP questions Bill Simmons wrote. So I don't know. The other ones, yes, that's a really good point, actually. I really like that, but I will say I still got Embiid.
I did see something. If Jokic won MVP, he would have the lowest, second highest scoring player on his team for an MVP since I think Tim Duncan back in the early 2000s, and I think it was Tony Parker who had averaged 13 a game. So that's a very good point. I mean, it's going to be a great race.
Yeah,
I can't wait to see because they're going to start
sure.
ramping it up because they want to outdo one another to win it. I think this is going to be awesome. Someone could come out. I mean, if DeMar broke Jordan records for a week straight.
Yeah,
that was great. So this has been such an awesome season.
Live from the Kennedy Greenhouse Studio.
This is Student News at 7.
NBA, I can't wait until.
I'm excited. It's between two big men.
That's another thing. We haven't had last year, Jokic was the first center to win it since I think Shaq in 2000. Oh, the year escapes me, but it was a long time for a center. So
it's definitely rare because I saw something that I thought was definitely really interesting the other day. It was talking about how the league is kind of almost transitioning into a big man league more so than it has been, at least in the past decade. Now we see big men, or at least bigger players, definitely playing a more important role to their teams than they did back in the day.
Such as Mason Plumlee, who was one of the biggest reasons the Hornets beat the.
I mean, you talk about best centers in the league.
I mean, Plum Dog, respect him. But speaking of the Hornets, they've won 5 games in a row, looking to make the playoffs for the first time since 2016. Their Vegas over/under win total before this season was 38. They're 37-35. It's been kind of they started out so well, and then injuries and some slow stretches kind of caught up to them. But it's been a successful season. So it's been honestly one of the most fun seasons I've had watching the Hornets because they've scored, they're top 3 in like almost every offensive category. They're first in net rating for offense since the All-Star break. I'm just hoping Miles Bridges comes back. But this has been a really fun season for them, and if they make the playoffs, I expect to see you two and everyone else watching at Spectrum Center because it's going to be rocking. That place has been outstanding this year. It hasn't been like 90s Charlotte Coliseum level hype, but when you can get defense chance on a Monday night against the Pelicans, something special's going on.
But I was at a game, and this is a little precursor to what I'm going to say, but I was at a game over spring break. And I was sitting there, and don't get me wrong, Jason Tatum was just piecing us. He was just he gave us, I think it was 44 that night, but we're sitting there, and it was a 6-point game with 3 minutes left in the third, and then the Celtics, once it hit, I think about the minute 12 mark, they just started taking off, and then brought it to like I think 12 heading into the fourth. And then it just went off even further from there. But point was, I'm sitting there, and the whole arena erupts into chants. And the chants say, "Let's go Celtics." And my heart was broken because we were really happy to be at this game. And, these other fans came into our place and showed us up. And it was really, we need to get the energy back in Charlotte. So yes, to your point, if anything can happen there, especially if we can host a play-in game, I can say that I will definitely be in attendance. But move forward with them. I mean, it's kind of funny because before this season, my roommate and I were both huge Hornets fans, and we were talking about the trade that gave us Mason Plumlee, and I was like, oh yeah, he'll be a serviceable backup, And that's where I underestimated the fact that Borrego would not choose to play the rookie center he wanted to trade up and get in this draft with the 19th pick. And instead he hasn't played him at all except in garbage minutes, and starts Plumlee and traded for
Montrezl Harrell is awesome. I don't want to hear a single second of Montrezl Harrell.
That was a really good trade.
I'm not hating on the trade.
Definitely.
I'm just saying that he chose, or that he doesn't like playing Plumlee, even though he just settles on the fact that he has to. And then Mitch goes out, gets Harrell, and don't get me wrong, again 6'7" center, which makes the size tough. He doesn't start him. Which I get it, Harrell's played off a bench role a lot of his career. He doesn't even play him more than Plumlee a lot of games. And so I get it, Plumlee's been better at times, but the ceiling with him is so low. So I just don't understand why we're doing it. We're going to end the season in mediocrity again. Best case, we're going to make an 8 seed. So thinking about it like that.
Taking the Heat, let's go.
Mean, the Heat don't move me. Teams are going to feast on Tyler Herro. The 76ers played the Heat without Embiid and Harden the other night and destroyed them in the fourth quarter. They went after Tyler Herro and shot 9 for 12 against him.
Hero. Sorry, keep going.
So I'm terrible at that. That's going to be a running theme on here. I'm terrible at pronunciations.
It's also Boeheim, not Boeheim.
Yeah,
but just
exactly.
wanted to help you out.
I saw your reaction to that earlier.
That's him saying he doesn't like your take. He's like, you didn't say this right.
It's just teams are going to feast on him. And the Hornets haven't made the playoffs in 6 years. This isn't mediocrity. This is a next step. You can't jump from a team who was 10th last year and jump all the way up. As nice as it would have been, if they can get Gordon Hayward back for the playoffs, I think that would be a really competitive. It was a really competitive series the last time the Hornets played the Heat in the playoffs. And if Purple Shirt Guy hadn't showed up and started mouthing off to Dwayne Wade, Hornets might have won that series.
Yeah, but we're about to be 10th again, bro. If we finish 10th again, no, I know, but if we finish 9th or 10th again and head into next season and don't come out really hot out the gate, then I just want to let go of Borrego 20 games in.
That's a discussion for the future.
Yeah. I think we just got, if right now we're pretty much a lock for the play-in no matter what. Just because below us in Atlanta there's a huge 6.5 games or whatever.
Right.
But I mean, you can't get into a playoff game and then get destroyed by last year the Pacers, lose by like 30. I mean, you can't have that happen again.
Yeah, but I think that was a really good learning point. You got to take your licks before you can start dishing them out. That was the first playoff experience for practically, I think, every person on the roster except for Rozier. And so I think that's going to be a really good learning experience. I think they have a good shot against if they can play the Nets on the road, that'd be great, because then they won't have to play against Kyrie for the play-in. But I think they have a great shot against Atlanta, because, Atlanta is not nearly as good this year, and John Collins is out for the foreseeable future. So I'm really, this season, as it winds down, it's crazy to think that there's only 10 more games left. Who do y'all think, who are your picks for, let's just do finals picks.
Go finals picks?
Yes.
Okay, I'll start. I think in the West, it's going to be one of the top two teams. I think a Phoenix Grizzlies Western Conference Final. I think that's going to be really fun to watch. But right now, the Grizzlies, we talked about this in the locker room a few weeks ago, like how sustainable are the Grizzlies just like in the playoffs? And I mean, they're looking good. They already passed the Warriors, who are now without Steph. But I think that team is definitely could take a run at Phoenix, but I think the Suns return to the finals. I think the East is definitely more of a question mark, because as you mentioned, I'm kind of agreeing with you that Miami, although they have like really good depth, I feel like they could falter definitely to maybe they play a hot Celtics team. That is not a team you want to play.
Are so scary.
They are playing insane right now. 22-4 in their last 26. That is crazy. So honestly, I think it could be. I'd love to see the Sixers make it. I think that would be really fun. So that's what I'll say. I'll go Suns Sixers finals.
Okay. What about you?
I'm going Suns Celtics, just because, Spencer and I have talked in the locker room before about my feelings on the Suns, but I just really like the team. As I predicted on that show actually a few weeks ago, Campaign stepped into the Chris Paul role pretty well. Obviously, nowhere near the player Chris Paul is, but he's been playmaking really well so that Booker doesn't have to be a primary ball handler and can focus on scoring. So the team can be on the same trajectory as it was. And it seems, while Chris Paul makes a huge impact and they'll need to get him back on the court as soon as possible, they're staying afloat, without him. And that's all they really have to do for right now. They just need to stay afloat. But assuming that Chris Paul can come back sometime early first round or just in time to get them to the next round, then I really like them moving forward. Boston's the same deal. I mean, their struggle was their assist numbers. Ime knew coming into the season that they needed to get their assist numbers up from last season, and now they've taken, I think that it's assist percentage on offensive possessions. They went from, I think it was 19th earlier in the season to now I think 4th, which is just such a huge jump, and it shows that recently they've been at the top of the league at that number because they've had to get that number upwards. I really like the Celtics. They have great scorers down the stretch. If somebody needs the ball in crunch time, you look at a number of different places, but Tatum's taking his game to the next level. He can score inside, he can score outside, and they're all solid defenders. So I really like them. I think that the Sixers don't have enough depth to get there. And my second pick would be Milwaukee, because obviously it's just...
They know how to play and win in the playoffs. I really like the Celtics respect that started with you and then ramped up. I think give me the Celtics coming out of the East. I trust Jason Tatum more than anyone else in the Eastern Conference in the playoffs except for Giannis and Chris Middleton, who's an insane playoff performer. Mm-hmm. I mean, his last year was awesome. I think they're unreal defensively. Defense wins in the playoffs, and they're almost impenetrable, and they have been impenetrable over this run. Like you said, 22-4. Jason Tatum is unreal. Marcus Smart, Jaylen Brown. I love the Celtics out of the East. And then in the West, give me the Grizzlies. Coming out of the West, I think they're really great. I think they're going to get healthy for the playoffs because they're dealing with some injuries to wow, the name escapes me. But John Morant's been out for a couple games, but they just have outstanding defense. Jaren Jackson Jr. is actually like a sleeper for Defensive Player of the Year. He's outstanding. I think their home court environment in Memphis is insane. Give me Chris Paul falling again in the playoffs. Falling short, they're going to lose to the Grizzlies in 7 in the West, and then Grizzlies Celtics is going to be outstanding. What I really would want to happen is for DeMar DeRozan to finally get over that playoff hump, but the Bulls are 0-16 against the top 3 seeds from both conferences.
Oh, yeah.
So I don't think that's going to happen, but I mean, in my heart, I obviously want the Hornets to do it, but in my realistic heart,
I mean, they're this close, really.
I want DeMar DeRozan to get over the hump, but I don't think so. Give me Celtics, Grizzlies. I think this is going to be an outstanding playoffs.
I was going to say, I think all 3 finals
I mean,
we just said would be great to watch.
Right.
Even the play-in is shaping up to really good. I mean, because you have the Nets, who are super talented. The Hornets are really fun. Trae Young and the Hawks. We could either have the Cavs or the Raptors. The Raptors are a sleeper team in the playoffs, I think, just because of how they play defense and the Pascal Siakam. And they just have so many scores, Gary Trent and Fred VanVleet. But the West play-in is going to be either a great, battle between, New Orleans and the Lakers, or it's going to be, LeBron kind of waving the white flag and it was an awesome season, just a kid from Akron, I got my 25. But Russell Westbrook has actually played good over the last couple of games, so if they can keep that up, I think they could have a really great play-in game. And LeBron in the playoffs, you never want to bet against him, but I think
definitely,
I think that would be a great series against the Suns if they got the 8, or if they got the 7 against the Grizzlies, that'd be awesome.
All right, y'all. Well, thank you so much for tuning in today. As you heard, we spoke a lot of facts, especially myself with my Duke takes. But we really appreciate it on our first episode, and please stay on the lookout for episodes coming forward. Next week's will more than likely be Wednesday, and this, I don't know, will be probably tomorrow. So
it'll be up
Thursday.
soon.
So, but thank you
keep
for...
an eye out.
Exactly.
Turn on post notifications for the SGTV YouTube channel.
This guy.
Always got a plug.
All right, well, appreciate you guys, and thank you for tuning in.
Thank you.